Good morning, friends. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm your birthday boy, Weston Hasty, and you're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I already said that. I always say it twice. You know, just in case, in case you didn't know where you were. In case you didn't know what you were listening to. I like to say it twice. Today, I'm listening to some, lo-fi stuff while I record this. I always have to be listening to something. It's super chill right now. I feel like you're not going to be able to hear this because it's copyright stuff. I can't share it with you. I can't tell you what I'm listening to. I'm listening to Sticky by BLNKSPC_. Yes. I don't know what that is. I don't know. I'm just on that old music.youtube.com. I think we talked about that on the podcast forever ago. I think it's an episode titled something like the best music streaming platform or something like that. And I gave my opinion of music streaming. I think that's something that we did at one point in time on the podcast, what feels like another lifetime ago. I think that's what we did. I am derailing myself ever so slightly. Today's topic. I had a birthday. It's been a minute since we had an episode. I tend to do that. I really need to be better about it. It's been a minute since the last episode, and in that minute, several things have happened. Life goes on whether or not I make a podcast to talk about it or not. So, here we are. In that minute, I had a birthday. That's right, I'm older now. I'm a whole year older since the last time you heard from me. And, it hits different when you get older. Birthdays, you probably don't need me to tell you that. If you're listening to this, you probably get it, maybe, I assume. But this is my podcast, so this is what we're talking about today. When you're younger, when you're a child, birthdays are exciting. If you've got, family and friends that show up to birthday parties and you eat pizza and cake or whatever you do. Maybe there's games, pintails and piñatas and the such. You get gifts. It's very exciting. It's a whole affair, right? A whole to-do. And as you get older and older, you start having these different milestones you reach. When you turn this, you can do that. You turn 16, you can drive. You turn 18, you're an adult. You turn 21, you can drink. And I guess smoke now? I don't know when that happened. This was a while ago now. I think this was last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago. How long ago was this? The law around here, I don't know if it's statewide. I think it is. I think it's the state of Illinois changed its law at some point in time a while ago that you have to be 21 to even smoke, like cigarettes or whatever. So that's kind of wild because this is all related. I remember my parents talking about how they used to be able to, say, drink at 18 because the drinking age in Illinois, or even, it was weird. To listen to them explain it, it was almost as if the laws varied county to county. And I don't know if that's because the state was legally at 18, but some counties was at 21 or something. To listen to my parents talk about it, there are some inconsistencies. Point being, they talk about how, you used to be able to drink at 18. And I've never experienced that. Drinking age has always been 21. But I remember when the smoking age was 18, and now that's 21. And it's just... It hits different. You get older, and you start, having more and more occasions to say, well, back in my day... More and more occasions pop up where you're like, well, years ago, it used to be like this. I remember when... It hits different. I feel like I say that more and more often. Different things that, especially at work, just the way, with my coworkers and the way we do things. I work at a Subway, no big deal, whatever. But even around there, because I've been there for a while, I could say, oh yeah, years ago, things used to be done like this. Things were different then than they are now. And the older you get, the more of those things start happening, where you're like, yes, I used to pay this for gas. That's another big one. Granted, the last 2 years now, this year and all of pandemic year has been wild on gas prices. But if you start going back a decade ago, gas prices were such and such, or 20 years ago, gas prices were such and such. Again, it's another one of those things where my parents talk about how they remember gas used to be like a freaking quarter a gallon or whatever it was they used to talk about. Maybe it wasn't a quarter. I don't remember. When you're a kid, you don't really listen. When you're a kid and you're growing up and your parents are like, back in my day, I used to pay a nickel for a cheeseburger. When you're a kid, you don't really pay attention. You just roll your eyes and say, whatever. That was ancient times. We have a joke in my household. It's not unique to us. I think we got it from somewhere that got it from somewhere. But like, anything that happened to my parents before I was around was BC, before children. So that was like 7 BC. That was 7 years before I existed. I'm their firstborn child. So before I existed, that's BC, right? And, the BC era, or BCE, before Common Era, or whatever it's called now, is like 2,000 years ago. Over 2,000 years ago. It seems like an impossible amount of time ago. And that was the joke, right? BC. The time that my parents existed before I did, that's ancient times. Long, long ago. And it's funny because, gas prices, food, etc. Now I'm in a position where while gas prices aren't like, if it was $1 a gallon or whatever when I was 5, it's not like $10 now yet. We haven't reached there, but I often think ahead in terms of what will like mundane things in the future be like. So gasoline is like a fossil fuel, right? It's limited, and already everybody's trying to make leaps and bounds towards green energy, wind, solar, getting away from fossil fuels as much as possible. There's a huge movement for that. But imagine a future, right, in a near future indeed, where fossil fuels continue to get rarer and rarer, and whatever things that we have that will be using fossil fuels, like in cars, there's a huge movement towards like electric, but I think even gas-powered cars is going to stick around for a minute still. So you can imagine like 10 years from now, is gasoline going to be so hard to come by? Is it going to be $10 a gallon or whatever? Is that a lot to imagine? Or even like the huge push for in the United States. I don't know where you're necessarily listening to this podcast. I don't know where you're from. But in the United States, there's this huge push to get the minimum wage to increase basically everywhere. And in Illinois, where I'm at, it's increasing to $15 an hour for minimum wage. I don't remember when it will eventually be 15. They've been raising it incrementally over the last... when did they pass that? Year and a half ago? Something like that? They passed it just before pandemic, I think. I think is when they passed it. Maybe it was during pandemic. Pandemic was about 17 billion years long. So my sense of like when anything has happened has been completely disrupted. But I think that's pretty normal for people. I think the pandemic year has 2020 has just completely destroyed people's sense of time. It has mine. But anyway, point being, the minimum wage now is like 12, I think, or something like that, and it's going to be 15 in another year or something. It's going up like $1 every 6 months or something. I don't remember. Anyway, so like minimum wage is going to be $15 soon. And when it is, I will be old enough to say, yeah, I remember when it was $8.25. I don't necessarily, the national minimum is still $7.25, I think. Illinois has been $8.25 for a long time. I don't know when they passed that. I could do a quick Google. I'm actually quite curious. When did Illinois raise minimum to $8.25? Google will know what I mean when I say raise minimum. Google will know. When was the last minimum wage increase? Oh, 2010. Actually, that was not that long ago. So, like, yeah, but I wasn't working yet in 2010. I was in high school. I was not working in high school, so I did not know when it got to $8.25. So that really wasn't all that long ago, to be honest. So I just wasn't aware of it because I wasn't in the workforce yet. Point being, once it's at 15, I will have lived through a period of time where minimum wage has basically doubled. right? Like say it was, if it was like $7.50 and it's going to be 15, then it's doubled. I will have lived through a period of time where the minimum wage has doubled. I don't know. That's just kind of wild. I mean, imagine especially if you're older than me, you're probably, this is not new to you. This is not new to you. If you're younger than me, it's also probably still not new to you because I don't know. It's just wild to me, right? Imagine buying milk for $1 and then in 10 years it's $2, and then in another 10 years it's $4, and then in another 10 years it's $8. You know what I mean? If it just keeps doubling every 10 years or whatever. I mean, I get it. It's like inflation. I know everything's always going up, but I just feel like, sorry, I had to take a sip. I just feel like it hits different. The older you get, the more things you remember and how they used to be, and you compare and contrast those. So anyway, I just had a birthday. I just turned the big 28. I've always been very coy on the internet about saying how old I am. I don't know why. It's one of those things where growing up, this is another thing that's going to date me slightly. Growing up, I didn't really have the internet. We had dial-up internet, but we weren't, and I say we because my family, like my brother and I, we're not allowed to get on the internet unless it was like for researching school because our parents were like paying by the like minute or something to dial up. I don't even remember if it was by the minute or if it was by like megabyte download or whatever it was. But point is, it was dial up. So if you were on the internet, it used our phone line. So I remember a point in time where you couldn't be on the phone and on the internet at the same time. And my brother and I really weren't allowed to be on the internet anyway for years. So I didn't really grow up using the internet. Where was I going with this? There was a point to this. Hang on, I lost it. I was going to say something about it. What was I just talking about? Rewind. Go back to what I was talking about. My memory is going. I've become the dementia, the Alzheimer's, it's sinking in. Hang on, let me think about this for a sec. Okay, do you guys know time has passed, but I literally had to go back and like remember what my point was. My point was that I'm always coy about my birthday. I had to stop recording, go back to the footage. I'm like, what was I talking about? I had a point and I lost it. I think I'm not gonna make it to 29. I'm not gonna make it. Anyway, my point is I'm always coy about how old I am on the internet because growing up, I didn't really have the internet. We weren't really on the internet. And my mom especially was always very adamant that my brother and I, we didn't give away personal information over the internet. Okay, so that's always been something that's always stuck with me, is being very private, not super trusting of the internet. I mean, even today, there's a good reason to be that way, to keep yourself pretty much as private as possible on the internet, because there are weirdos out there. There are people that will do stuff with your information, that kind of thing. So point being, I've always been very, very coy about how old I am on the internet. But now that I spend a lot more time doing YouTube, I stream games on YouTube. If you don't know, it's under the name Magic Man Mo on YouTube. I do a bunch of gaming content and I stream, and people ask me stuff from time to time. And it's been my birthday month, so people have been asking about my birthday and how old I am and that kind of thing. So usually I'm very coy. I have this running joke that I'm a 9,000-year-old anime vampire girl. Because if you could choose to be anything, why not a 9,000-year-old vampire anime girl, right? So anyway, that's what my go-to answer has basically always been. But here recently, it's been a hot minute now. My birthday was actually a few weeks ago. Anyway, someone asked me on my Discord. That's related to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel has a Discord server where people can talk to me and that kind of thing. And I was asked how old I was, and I was being coy, as I am, as per usual, and not really giving an answer. And I figured, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll give you 3 guesses, and then I was gonna tell them how old I was, because why not? And they had some goof guesses. Like 2 of their guesses were like just goofs, and I don't remember what they were exactly. It was like 100 or 2 or whatever. And it's like, okay, those are goofy answers, but no, seriously, take a guess. How old do you think I am? And they're like, oh, you're probably in your like 30s to 40s. And I felt my soul leave my body. Now, admittedly, I'm aware that this individual on my server is young. Because I run a gaming YouTube channel. You have a lot of... If you know, you do that for long enough, depending on what games you play and your type of personality. And I'm pretty accessible in terms of gaming content. Not a ton of swearing, not a ton of gory games, that kind of stuff. I'm pretty accessible as a gaming creator. So I do get a younger audience. And I don't know how young they are exactly. I do not ask people how old they are. I don't want to know. I've got my YouTube analytics that starts at 18 and goes up, but beyond that, I don't ask how young people are. One, I just think that's creepy. And two, then you just get in this weird, especially with the youngest people that watch your streams, you just get into this weird conversation where everybody suddenly wants to talk about how old they are. I'm 11, I'm 7, or whatever. I hope I don't have 7-year-olds watching me, God. But, point being, I know this person's younger. I don't know how young. I know they're younger. So it's fair to say that they might not have the most accurate grasp on how old somebody is in terms of just guessing how old someone is. I remember being young and taking stabs in the dark how old someone is or what I might consider to be old or consider to be young or whatever. I mean, like a 10-year-old, if you're 10, like 30 seems ancient. You know what I mean? But their guess... Their quote-unquote realistic guess was 30s to 40s. And I'll admit, I'm getting close to 30, but the fact that even 40 came up as, like, the remotest possibility, I felt my soul leave my body there, and I was just like, oh, God darn it. If I look like I'm 30s to 40s now, by the time I'm 30s to 40s, I'm gonna look dead. I'm gonna look like a corpse. This is it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not gonna make it past 30. I used to joke about that. It's actually funny. I still think about that. How when I was younger, as a teenager, I would joke to people. I don't remember how it came up. I don't actually remember the conversations. I don't know why. I don't remember that half of it. I don't know how it would come up. But I've always had kind of like... a strange sense of humor, a sense of humor that was a little bit off, I think, and maybe a little macabre sometimes. So if it ever came up about like, oh, what are you going to do when you're older or in the future or whatever, if anything that related to me being older one day, if that topic came up somehow, my go-to was always, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to make it past 30. I'm going to die by 30. And I don't know why I said that. I don't know why that was the joke. I don't know what I thought I would be doing that would put my life at risk by 30. I wasn't going into the military or something where, like, you know, there's, like, a risk of something fatal happening. I know, like, we all risk our lives, like, every day that you just go outside. God knows something could happen to you. You could get in a car crash. Someone could just decide to freaking mug you. I don't know. It's terrifying. I don't want to dwell on that. But the point is, I wasn't planning on doing anything that especially put me at risk of being dead by 30. And yet that was always my go-to joke. Current me does not understand where teen me came up with my macabre sense of humor, but that, this was always the other end of it too. It's like I was either going to be dead by 30, or if I survive 30, I will never die because I will have clearly proven myself to be immortal. I'm clearly an immortal vampire, and that's why my joke to this day is still that I'm a 9,000-year-old anime vampire girl. The anime girl part is just, I just tap that on because it's silly. But, yeah, the joke was always, I'll be dead by 30 or I will be immortal. There is no in-between. Oh, man. And if the indication of me having to go back and literally recover my point that I was trying to make earlier, the fact that I had to stop everything and be like, what was I just talking about? If there's an indication, that's it. But I just had my 28th birthday, and yeah, I'm older now, and it's a time of reflection. There's like 2 times of reflection in a year for me. That's like the new year, which is kind of like the world's birthday, kind of. Not the calendar's birthday. Yes, the Julian calendar's birthday or what. New Year's is a time of reflection. And more so lately, as I've, gotten to the age where, like, there are no more, like, serious milestones until I'm, like, on AARP or something by the time I'm retirement age. There's no more milestones. So every year is just, another year, really. And so it's a time of reflection about whether or not I'm doing the things with my life that I want to be doing with my life, right? That's something I think about here more so lately than I have in the past. And every year that passes now, I think about it a bit more intensely. Am I doing the things that are going to be putting me where I want to be years down the line? Because there's no more. There's no more, like, preparing for the future. There's no more preparing to be an adult. When you're a child, when you're a teenager, whatever, you're always looking on to the next thing. When you're a kid, I'm going to go to middle school. When you're in middle school, I'm going to go to high school. When I'm in high school, I'm going to go to college. When I'm going to college, I'm going to go get a job. And then I'll have a job, and then one day I'll die. I don't know, like that, but that's the stretch of life I'm on right now, right? Is I'm working, I'm an adult. There's no other thing to go on to. So the thing that I think about more and more now is, because it's not like I'm what I'm doing right now in terms of my job. I said I work at Subway. That is not what I plan on doing until I die. Not at all. So the thing that I reflect on is, well, what's the next move? Am I doing what I need to do to get to that point, to that place? Or am I just turning the wheels? Am I just spinning the wheels? And here lately, because a couple months ago I had a really bad dose of seasonal depression that spiraled me harder than it ever has before, probably. That's not entirely true, but it's been a long time. It's been a long time. And I'm not going to dwell on that. It's something you just deal with and then move past, I guess. That's just my way. But point being, am I doing the things that I need to be doing to get me to where I want to be? And ideally, one of the things I really want to do, one of the things I want to sort of become, ideally, is a full-time creative of some kind. The question kind of becomes like, what does that mean? And I do the YouTube thing. I mentioned that. Gaming YouTuber, streamer type thing. I do that, and I enjoy that a lot. And I have people that watch my stuff that enjoy what I do, and it's really exciting. But that's also not the entirety of what I want to do. I mean, this podcast is an excellent example of that's not all I want to do. There are other things I want to create. I've been doing a lot more writing lately, working on my poetry. I want to write a book at some point, if not several. Am I doing the things that position me to doing that, to accomplishing writing a book? Or I want to write a book of poetry. I want to write a book of fiction. And I want to write a book of nonfiction. It might be creative nonfiction, which flirts that line between fiction and nonfiction, but creative nonfiction is more fun than nonfiction, if that makes sense. There's things I want to write. There are shows I want to produce, which includes other things in the realm of gaming, but also I want to create an educational program. At the moment, my best platform in mind is like just on YouTube. And I haven't been working my way towards that. I want to create an educational program on YouTube. I want to create entertainment as well. That's why I do the gaming thing. This podcast. The goal for this podcast is for it to be informative and entertaining, but at the moment, it's mostly like this sort of thing that I do for myself, I think. Because it's not like a ton of people watch this. It's not like it makes me a ton of money. For the time being, this podcast is like a creative outlet, right? Actually, this podcast is an excellent example of what I mean by am I doing the things I need to be doing. Right now, the podcast is just a creative outlet where I can discuss my thoughts about stuff, feelings about stuff, whatever, record it, film it, talk to myself for half an hour or whatever I do with this podcast, create that into a piece, creating that into a piece of work and put it out into the world, whatever. That's kind of the end of it. So right now it's just a creative outlet, but the eventual goal is for it to be more than that, right? What do I want this podcast to accomplish, like on its own? Not what does it do for me, what do I want this podcast to do for the viewer or listener in this case? It's kind of hard to figure that out, but the question is, am I taking the steps necessary to get to that point? Am I just recording myself in front of a camera and throwing it out onto YouTube and hoping it sticks, or do I have an action plan to get it to something that's more meaningful to people, more impactful? Same thing with my gaming YouTube. It's fun to sit down and play video games with a webcam on and people can watch or whatever, but am I doing what I need to do to propel that into being seen by more people, or creating a bigger show, or being able to do more with it? Can I make a bigger impact with what I do that isn't just me sitting in a room playing video games? Can I do something with it? For a lot of people, that's like charity work and that kind of thing, raising money for charity even though they're playing games, which is an excellent avenue that tons of people have done. I want to do something similar, right? With all my work. Like, I want it all to be more impactful and meaningful, but all these different creative things that I do, I also want them to be able to support me so I can continue to make them bigger. So how do I get all these things, my writing, my podcast, my gaming, all that stuff, how do I get that stuff into a position where I can do it full time so I can expand it even further and then use that to leave an impression, an impact, a legacy? Something like that. The reason I bring all this up is because I'm getting older. So I want to create things that, should I die by 30? It's so stupid. Should I die by 30, the things that I've made, will it leave an impact after me? Will it continue to serve even though I'm gone? Because right now, I'm doing these things for me. It's a creative outlet. I do it. It serves me. But when I'm gone, it serves no one. It's gone. It's over. I won't be around to need a creative outlet. And that's what I think about now. That's what I think about now that I'm older. Existential crises. That's what I think about now. And I want to get to that point. And I think I'm trying to move towards that direction. But more so than ever, I feel a sense of urgency to work harder, to work smarter, to push this stuff into being more than it currently is. And as we close up today's podcast, as we close up this episode, I just want to push that on to all of you. And you can take this in any way you want. What are you doing with the time that you have? And it doesn't have to be meaningful to other people. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to be like creating podcasts and stuff or shows on YouTube or whatever. You don't have to be like that. What are you doing with your time? Just think about it. Is it what you want to be doing with your time? Do you want to do something else? Are you missing out on something? I don't know. I think about that a lot. What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my time, and how do I want to spend it? So, on that somber note, I'll end today's episode. Thank you all so much for listening or watching this podcast that is available on your favorite podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. So, look for a Hasty Podcast on wherever. I mean, if you made it this far, you're listening to it on a thing you probably like listening to it. But I just want to throw it out there. It's on YouTube or your podcasting platforms. Hit me up on Twitter at Weston Hasty if you would like to ask questions, leave comments, or even suggestions about what to talk about in future podcast episodes. If you would like to support the podcast, the best thing you can do is share it with your friends and family and help grow the podcast. The more eyes and ears we have on the podcast, the more motivated I am to continue doing this stuff regularly. And so that I stand a better chance of accomplishing my goal of becoming that full-time creative that we talked about. Additionally, if you'd like to support this podcast with your money, you can do so on patreon.com/Weston Hasty. That is Weston with an O, Hasty with a Y. Just in case you don't know how to spell those. I mean, Hasty should be pretty straightforward. It's the name of the podcast. You can probably see it. But that's what I have for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching or listening. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and wash your hands. All right, I'm out. Bye.